Can everyone hear me? Jason, you got good audio?
I can hear you, not very loud.
All right. I can see we got a full quorum. All four board members are here. We'll go to, first of all, do we have any public comments that came in via email?
I have no public comments.
We have no public comments for today. All right, thank you. Article 1, to consider the town's operations compliance plan of the state of Maine, restarting Maine's economy plan, beginning May 1, 2020 through September 30, 2020. Gary? We all have a copy of what you put together, your draft copy?
Yep. So what I did for you, after the governor changed her Maine's plan for reopening, and she proposed the restarting Maine's economy plan, outlines some basic, I guess, guidelines for the public, businesses, employers, and people in general for Maine from May through August 31. And the governor's plan has 4 stages to it. What really relates to us here in our operations, I think, is what we're looking at is probably a 2-stage plan for reopening that keeps us in compliance of the governor's reopening plan. And, you know, the reopening plan for May, for instance, for May is that crowd sizes are limited to 10 or less people. And then beginning in June through August 31, there's a prohibition on gatherings of more than 50 people. And so, you know, we see businesses and public places following these guidelines. I think as a municipality, we have, as an employer and as a entity that provides services and has meetings, we're going to have to have some sort of guidelines that are going to help us through. And I think adopting a plan, this proposed plan puts us in compliance of the state's plan, if you will. And so moving on through, what I've done is basically broken our operational plan into departments, which are our departments, and how we would envision we could operate in May, through May, and then from June through August, if things stay exactly the way they are, if the governor's orders do not change. And so how would you like me to, would you want me to read through the plan outline so that people can hear it? And then we can just go through, and then you guys we can discuss department by department as we work through. How would you like to move forward?
I don't know. I don't want to throw everything out all at once. If you started with, for example, the town office, and you could read through that, then we could discuss the town office and move on to another department. I think that might be more manageable. Okay. How about, what do you guys think?
Yeah, I think for public interest and those that are watching and listening, it would be it's good that we cover most of these issues anyway, or most of these points of interest.
Yeah. Okay, Gary, start with the town office.
Okay, so starting with the town office, what we're proposing is a reopening date between Monday, May 18 and June 1, Monday, June 1. Somewhere's in that line, we can be ready by Monday, June 18. And I got today, Natalie provided us a list that came on the listserv from town clerks across the state, what their tentative reopening schedules are. And what we're seeing is a range of anything between now and June 1. I don't see anything on a list of probably a list that fits on an 8x11 towns that proposes to open later than June 1. I don't know if that's because we're not seeing those towns on there, if it's because I don't know what I don't have a lot of details on their proposed plans. All I have is basically a wide range of opening dates that start between today and June 1. With, you know, I think the lion's share of it It's probably leaning towards more the latter end of May, beginning of June. So what we're proposing here at the town office is that we would reopen between Monday, May 18 and Monday, June 1. And our operational plan for the employees is that employees that are like we've operated now, employees who can work from home, we encourage that to continue to happen. And we do have employees that have been able to take their work home and work from home. So when practical and when possible, we encourage that. We propose resuming normal business hours, 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. We have just finished today the plexiglass installation on the front counters. We need to install hand sanitizing stations. We are short. It's hard to get hand sanitizing supplies. Either the sanitizer itself or the dispensers are hard to get. So I think we're gonna have to rob some of the other departments, like the rec department that's closed right now, or the fitness center, and until we can get those hand stations, sanitizing stations. We're going to provide hand sanitizing stations for the staff on the other side of the wall, if you will. And also for the clientele. We're not going to allow public behind the counters. What we're proposing to do is have a place where, for instance, if the assessor or the code enforcement officer or myself needs to meet with somebody, a client, we'll do it in the boardroom at the table. And that'll be a place, a common place where we will meet. And then after we have our transaction completed, we'll clean up like all the other businesses, establishments do. So that way we're not getting people behind the counters. We're going to require that the employees who are in proximity to clientele or people where they can't maintain distances, they wear their face masks. So at a minimum, we're going to be telling our employees that they should have their mask with them at all times, so that in the event that they cannot be 6 feet apart, or if they want to wear them voluntarily, then yes, they should go ahead and wear those. But we're going to make sure that the employees have masks with them, or face coverings, if you will. The front of the town office doesn't lend itself very well to queuing up customers. It's very narrow and long. We have 3 stations there. We think that we can staff those 3 stations and keep them. Was it 2 stations, Nat, or 3? 3. We think that we can staff those 3 stations and keep those available for clients as they come in. What we're looking at is allowing customers to enter the center door of the town office and exit through the door that they would normally use now for services at the town office. And we're going to basically set up some signage and markings to queue customers in, prevent stacking of customers either in front of the door outside or inside the door, if you will. Most all of you know the layout of the front of the town office, and you know, it's not the greatest for being able to bring in a lot of people and space them out.
Gary,
Yep.
the door that goes into the boardroom and towards the business part of the offices and stuff, will that door be locked?
That will be closed and off limits. And we will open the door. We plan to use the boardroom to meet with clients if we have to. We will unlock the door.
During the business part, are you telling me that I come into the front doors of the town office, I do my business, then I take a right turn, exit out the door that would go outside where the stairs are that go up to the superintendent's office?
You would come in by the superintendent's office door and
Or you're
leave.
going to come in by there?
Yeah, and you would leave by the main door in
Okay.
front of the clerk
Got it.
station.
Got it.
And who's gonna tell the person to come in if there's already 3 people at the desk? Who's gonna tell them when somebody else can come in?
We're going to have signs outside that are going to basically say, if you see somebody standing in the vestibule on the inside of the door, that middle door, that you need to wait for that person to clear out. And once that that area becomes open, that will prompt the next person to come in, if you
So,
will.
so the one standing inside the door will have visibility to the front counter.
Yep.
And when somebody leaves, they can replace them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now we've set up some ribbon, those stands that have those retractable ribbons that you use to guide customers through.
Yeah.
You see those in airports and amusement parks and things like that. We
Yeah.
have those set up right now that will kind of direct people to how to go to the station. And I think what's going to happen is, we're going to be directing people to.
Are you gonna tell the public that they can come in as is, or do they need a face mask, or to do what they feel is comfortable for them?
So that's always the tricky question, Dave. We have people that fully support face masks, and we have people that don't agree with the face masks. And so that's something that we're going to have to discuss here as you guys as a board. What are we going to require? I know that businesses in town, there's already been a little bit of concern with businesses and clientele. And from our understanding that, the business has the right to have a face mask policy, if you will, much like a no shirt, no shoes, no service policy. Businesses can do that if they want. It's up to them. It's up to us if we want to make sure, if we want to insist on masks for people coming in, or face coverings. And being the hot potato topic of the week, face masks, I think that we're going to have to decide for ourselves what are we going to do. I think at a very minimum, we should encourage it with signage at a very minimum. But it could be that people don't have resources, don't have the access to masks, or they come in here and they didn't have one, and they left their lunch hour at work and they don't have a lot of time.
Yeah.
It's tough. It's tough. So
Well, make it voluntary, encourage it, and then just make it voluntary. Don't say it's mandatory.
Lori, you want to say something?
Well, it's a public building, so I don't think that it's right for us to tell anyone that they have to wear one. The only concern I can see that might happen is if you do have 3 customers standing there, that isn't 6 feet. If you're standing 3 people at the counter, and if some person standing next to me doesn't like the fact that I have one on, you might not have, like, if I don't wear one and the person next to me gets upset about that, you might have that kind of complaint. But it's a public building. I don't know that we can force anyone to, or that we should. I don't think we should force anyone to wear one.
I think our signage is going to be key here. And I think, what we could do at a very minimum is encourage people to wear masks, but also educate the public that will be using our services in our front lobby that we're not making it mandatory. So the decision to enter the building is going to be their own. And yes, it can happen that, somebody's not going to want to wear a mask. And we can work, I guess maybe, the staff, we can all work to accommodate if there's a concerned person, somebody concerned about somebody not wearing a mask. Maybe we could queue them up differently and say, okay, well, we're going to wait for this person to leave and
Yeah.
whatnot. So
No, you got to play it by ear a little bit there, and I think it's the wise thing to do to make it a recommendation rather than enforcing another rule.
yeah. So again, we're going to use all the markings that we can use to keep everybody distant. Lori, yes, you are right. There are going to be opportunities when there are 3 people at the front counter that they are going to be less than 6 feet apart. If they're standing at the front counter, they're pretty much 6 feet apart. If they're right centered into their station. So we're good there, but there's going to be some overlap as one leaves the door. And for instance, the last station coming in, where towards Fort Kent, if you will, we might have to wait and say, okay, now it's clear to come. I don't know. We're gonna work at it and tweak it to make it work, I guess.
Yeah, and if you know that, I mean, you foresee that you're gonna have to have all three of them open? You think it's gonna be that busy?
We do have periods of where it's pretty busy, lunch hours and things like that. People get off their lunch break and they run to the town office to get things done. May can be a pretty busy time of the year in town offices. People want to register their boats and their ATVs and those things they can't do
Yeah.
online. And so, yeah, spring is a very busy time in the town office. So we foresee that, you know,
I was just saying that so you might be able to take the middle one and close that one, and just use the two outside ones for when it's not too busy.
Yeah.
And if it gets too busy, you open the middle one, I guess.
Yeah, that's true. We can adjust.
Yeah.
You know, our employees here, like we have been, will practice social distance requirements. And in a nutshell, that's what we're proposing for the town office. So, you know, comments, suggestions. So what
Is there a reason
reopening
why?
date?
Is there a reason why we can't open next Monday?
I think our plexiglass is ready. We still need some more hand stations. I think we can be ready by next Monday.
Well, don't open if you're not ready, but if you are ready or could be ready for next Monday, you make that call.
have a
I mean,
question.
what would stop you here, Gary? I guess that's the question. If we're ready to go, we're ready to go.
We're almost there. You know, it's just trying to stay in compliance of what the rules are and trying to see what other towns are doing for reopening dates. And so we're not all, I'm not saying that we're all very different in respect to when we plan on reopening, but there is a bit of a who's going to go first and how are we going to reopen and what's reopening look like. And so, you know, I went with the middle of the road. I think we can definitely do it by May 18. We can probably do it next week if there's not much more that we need to do to be open next week. Other than,
Advertise that you're open.
yeah, we'll put out a press release, you know, and
Yeah.
advertise it. I mean, would be too late for deadline for advertising is Friday noon. So any advertisement that we would put in the local paper, hard copy, wouldn't hit the paper till next Wednesday. So we can still advertise that way. It'll be a couple of days late, but we can definitely do a press release and let people know that, and then put it on our, obviously on our website and push it that way.
Yeah, and you're still going to take if there are payments or whatever, you're still going to have the Dropbox, right?
People
Still
will
an
still be,
option.
the Dropbox has always been there for customers to use. So customers who are still concerned about getting out in the public will still have the ability for online services and what we're doing now. I think yeah, and then of course there's also the online registration services as well. So those who are concerned about still coming into the public, they still have the ability to do their transactions like they're doing now.
Any other questions? Oh, go ahead,
I do.
Lori.
You have on here something about gloves, protective gloves, and I was just curious because it seems as long as they sanitize in between customers, like what's the procedure for gloves? Why is that necessary?
I just put it in there because we handle cash. And so, you know, what are we going to do between the cash transactions? And so is it best to use gloves and then throw them out? Or is it best to be there, you know, without gloves and just sanitizing between the transactions? So I think it's in there as something that we can decide to do. And I think the staff can do what's most comfortable for them to protect themselves and to protect, you know, the customer as well.
You'll have to change the gloves between every customer then.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And sanitizing might be the better way to do it. You know, if that's the case, then because even the process of taking off gloves, you know, you can do that wrong, and
Yeah.
you know, sanitizing, as long as you get it on there and you distribute well, you know, you're gonna get it. So
Now, you may
So-
have the sanitizing stands and stuff for the public. Do you have the sanitizers themselves, the liquids or the foams, or do you have enough of that?
I need to find out, I need to talk to our buildings person to find out what our inventory is. We're not gonna have a lot of sanitizing stains, if you will. I think we can probably wall mount a hand sanitizing dispenser at each clerk's counter, if you will. So when the customer comes in, they can do their thing right there, coming in and going out if they wish.
Doug, any more questions?
No, I think, shooting for next Monday, I think is a good idea. That way, if you have any hiccups, you'll probably face them here a little bit early.
David, anything else?
Yeah, I think Monday is a good time to start, next Monday. Yeah.
Lori?
No, if something happens, you're not ready Monday, there's no reason you can't, open Tuesday or Wednesday, right? It doesn't have to go to the next
Totally.
Monday.
Right.
Yeah, I'm okay with this myself, so, all right. What's your next one?
Well, before we move on to
Next,
that, I need to know from you guys
Oh,
what the consensus is on masks. Are we just going to strongly encourage with signage and indicate to customers that there may be people in the building, clients that don't wear masks, and let them make their own decisions?
I think that's the proper way to go. I think you should recommend it and leave it at that.
Okay,
me
I
too.
agree.
all right.
You agreeing on that also, Lori, or?
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. Does that help, Gary, then?
That's all I need.
Okay. We're gonna go to the next page, which is what, the Recreation Department?
Correct. So the Recreation Department, right now, the grounds guys are back to work. They're starting to take care of the lawns and things like that. It's spring cleaning, and so they're out and about. They're able to do their work distant of each other, so that's not an issue. And then the management at Rec Department have their workstations at home, their computers at home, and they're taking care of all of their business at home currently. So through May, moving forward, again, if there are employees who are able to work from home, if it's practical, then we're going to encourage that. It may not be practical, but we're putting that in there. As far as summer programs, we've put a lot of thought into that, and there's been a lot of discussion with town managers, and the rec departments have been meeting by Zoom, all over the rec departments all over the state and the county. Some of the rec departments are not offering summer programs this summer, and some are reluctant to make a decision right now. They're going to they're sort of taking a wait and see approach what other towns are doing. The issue with summer programs is such that, okay, it's not an issue for May, so we may be able to defer a decision here for a few more weeks on summer programming. Our rec department director, I've asked him for what would be the deadline for you need a decision if we're going to do rec programs or not. And he said Sam has indicated June 1. So the issue with rec programs in respect to the governor's outlines for crowd size limitations and social distancing. Now, true that in June, the crowd size limitation goes up to 50. Our rec program had well over 100 participants last summer. It's questionable whether or not there will still be that much interest in it. I would presume that some parents would be concerned and might keep their kids at home this summer, who knows? But yet, again, the kids have been bottled up since March and are, it'd be nice to be able to offer something and get them outside. Where it's tough for summer programs and kids is the social distancing aspect as to whether or not we can always maintain 6-foot distances between kids and their supervisors and the counselors, and if you will. And so there is a requirement that we, as an employer, provide for social distancing of our staff in the operations that we put out, the services that we put out, can we reasonably expect that we're going to always be able to maintain social distancing of 6 feet between us kids in summer camp? And I think the consensus is that it's going to be hard to do. There's been a lot of discussion with town managers. We've all been leaning on each other, and I know the rec departments are trying to think outside of the box as to what could be done. There's not a lot of clear direction right now. And it seems as though we're all sort of waiting to see what everybody else is going to do in respect to rec programs. My concern, obviously, I would hate for not to have summer programs for the kids this summer. I mean, that's awful. However, my concern is that, you know, if we're not able to provide for social distancing and keep the kids separate, you know, how is that going to be received by the parents who are utilizing, you know, who are sending their kids here? Would that be a problem for them? Does it present a liability issue for us as a town if we provide a venue for which the kids can't be separated 6 feet apart all the time? And of course, the exception to 6 feet is they have to wear a mask, right? And so by offering a rec program, we do it. We try hard, but it's tough, you know. So I don't know if we can make a decision on this today. It's a very tough one for me, and I know it will be for you. Whether or not we can remain in compliance of the governor's orders is questionable. Along with summer programs was the food program. I knew early on what happens with the food program through the rec department is that we have to put our place mark in to the program. So, and we tell them how many kids we think we're going to have at a minimum, so we can get the funding for it. And so we do have the place mark in for that right now, but it's not a commitment. But you know, we had to decide. I think it was the 24th of April. We had to decide whether or not we wanted to put in for the food program. However, you know, not having summer rec, if we don't have summer rec, and we would not need a food program. But we do know that the school has run a very successful food program, and we're basically distributing through their busing system and deliveries. And so we did talk to the school about a decision by this board pending whether or not we were going to continue the food program this summer, because they needed to know in advance, because they would take it up themselves and continue their food program that they're doing now with, like, they're doing it with Fort Kent, and I think Wisdom is doing it as well, Senegat. I'm not sure what the delivery is going to be, if it's going to be, if they're going to continue to do door to door, or they're going to have drop off places. But for the time being, they needed to be put on notice that it's the potential for us not doing the food program is real, so that they could be ready. And so we've already had discussions with the school's lunch director and the superintendent, and with Sam and Diane as well. Moving on, we need to discuss parks. I've seen some towns close their parks downstate. Those decisions came earlier, obviously, as spring is earlier down there. Do we keep our parks open? I would like to think that we could. What do we do with our playground equipment? We know that the kids like to use that, and potential for crowding is there. Potential for not being able to stay 6 feet apart is there. What do we want to do as a municipality to for the parks? Okay, and like the bathrooms and the rest facilities, are we going to open those up, put signage, and say, hey, look, per the governor's orders, we are recommending that if your kids are going to be out here, stay 6 feet apart, no groups of more than 10, and at least until through May, and then after that 50. I don't think beyond 50 we would have an issue, too much of an issue with crowd size in parks. Birch Point Beach facilities as well. We do have some kid facilities there. What are we gonna do there? There's a lot of towns have been discussed, towns that have beaches, have had discussions what they're gonna do with their beaches. They're gonna be popular places for people to get out of the house, obviously, so we would think that on those sunny days, a lot of people are gonna take advantage of Birch Point Beach. We're gonna be open, and if so, do we wanna have some signage there basically saying, hey, you know, we're okay with you all using the beach, however, please keep your distances from everybody else. And I think that would work. Grounds maintenance crews are back to work right now. And of course, we're asking our employees to keep their face masks with them, protective gloves. And if they come into a situation where they're closer than 6 feet from somebody else, then put on your mask.
You missed the fitness center. You want to talk about that?
Oh, yeah. So thanks, Don. By the governor's order, the fitness center cannot open up till June 1. Okay, so we don't have to really decide on the fitness center right now beyond June, because we have a little bit of time. We're going to have another meeting before then. Fitness center is going to be a tough one. Right now, the way the fitness center runs, or when it usually runs, is that every user of the fitness center will clean up after themselves when they leave. There's spray bottles there, and they kind of wash the equipment that they've used, and it's an honor system. Again, where I don't foresee having any crowding issues there. I don't think I've ever seen 50 people in the fitness center at once. But I do foresee, you know, some concerns for sanitation, sanitizing that equipment that's adequate to you know, meet the need, keeping everybody safe. Well, can we rely on everybody to do that perfect job of cleaning the fitness center equipment? And if we don't feel good about that, then that means we're staffing that fitness center with somebody to clean up all the time. That's a cost that we've never incurred before, right? Because we've relied on everybody to clean up after themselves. So for the most part, I think everybody would do their part. But we wouldn't have any way of knowing if somebody was negligent.
If you have limited programs being offered at the rec department, normally you hire staff of X amount of students to work there. You probably budgeted for that, to have those type of wages included in the rec department budget. If you're not going to, you know, have the full rec program for the kids, there may be the possibility of 1 or 2 of those students being able to be available for certain hours of the day at the rec department, at the fitness center, to make sure the sanitizing is occurring. I don't know, it's just an idea.
Can
But
you clean before? Couldn't you put a sign up and say, you know, I'm not going to go in there and rely on the person before me that they cleaned it? Couldn't you have just a sign and say, this is at your risk, you clean your equipment before you use it, so that whoever's going in there will clean it up and make sure they're comfortable with whatever they're going to use?
That's a good idea.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
true.
I don't think we should not open it on the 1st. I mean, it's not, I don't know, you're never going to have that many people there at one time.
But I think that's a good idea. Usually we look to clean after we've been using the equipment. So why not just say, you know, make a statement, say, let's clean this equipment before you use it. So, so you know, you're protecting yourself.
Yeah, I would feel more comfortable that way, that you clean your own before you get on, and that way you know it's clean.
Yeah, good point.
I also have some seniors that have approached me today, and they're very anxious to get into the gym. So
We know
are
that
you
we
saying,
can't.
are you saying, Gary, that we can only open at the beginning of next month?
Yes,
And
specifically.
that's per the governor's
Yes.
mandate. Okay.
Which could change.
Can we open the multi for walkers on the 1st?
Well, the people are walking down the street right now. We see them on the street all the time
Right, it's
walking.
raining.
Yeah.
I would make one suggestion that at Dion Park, that the water fountain that's there not be opened, simply because it's open, the faucets are open, you're putting them out to draw the water. I would assume that we don't want people just one after the other trying to drink out of that fountain at the same time.
In respect to parks and playground equipment, what are your thoughts as to, you know, keeping those open? Are any restrictions on that? Just putting signage? What are your thoughts?
I, I guess to me, the words open and closed don't fit. I think that it's there, it's wide open. If you put signs, this is at your own risk. Because if we try to say the park is closed, who's gonna police that? And who's gonna, and you're gonna get 10 calls. Oh my God, there's kids there playing and my child went and there was, you know, I don't know. Maybe you just put signs and ask people to be respectful of each other and see what happens. And because, you know, there's people there now. I mean, we're saying it's open. I walk by and people are using them. So
Yep.
Being used now for sure.
I think that I would be more inclined to be open on the parks, but having signage there that people try to maintain the distances and whatnot. But it is sort of enter at your own risk. There's no way for us to sanitize the playground equipment. That's more where my concern was, you know, like what about the playground equipment and the proximity there and the kids using it, and what's the expectation? Because there's a wide array of opinions on that, and I think that it's worthy of having them discussed here. Then that's why I wanted to put it before this board. I'd like to see the parks open for the kids, place to go and walk around, and at least at the very minimum have some signage there to encourage people to be mindful to keep their distances from everybody else while the orders are up.
So you've got the month of May to prepare your signage. You're going to have a local contractor that does signs, make them for you.
Yeah, I mean, I've already talked to the rec department, and I've let them know that we're going to probably be putting up some signage at like the beach and our parks. It's educational, and I also have some signs to put out here by the town office for the queuing area. So we're gonna go to a local sign person with a list of signs that we want to have made soon, and get those done.
Gary, is that enough to protect the town against any kind of liability, you think?
So I actually have a question into the insurance company this morning, and our local agent has reached out to their underwriters. They haven't gotten back to them yet. So I'm just waiting on that. And I can keep you guys apprised of what I learned.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be good. You get till June 1st to, you know, to formally say that we're open or not. I would tend to agree that we want to keep those parks open if we can.
Gary, you know, with a lack of summer programs there, I mean, what does that do to the employment of some of our summer employees over there?
Well, so right now we have 4 full-time staff at the rec department. We have the director and then the Diane, who, you know, is taking care of the food program and a lot of the programs, if you will, the crafts and a lot of different things. You know, we wouldn't have to hire summer help, obviously. And the other 2 are primarily grounds people who help out as needed with programs and for heavy lifting and things like that. And so I know that, you know, I've talked to Sam at the rec department as to whether or not they can become creative enough to maybe come up with some programming activities, interactive through Zoom or something that they could put out there. And this is why I asked them for a deadline. What would the board be? What would be the latest date that we could push off a decision on summer rec? And he indicated June 1, and that's primarily because we have to secure staff to work this summer. So it's tough. I mean, school's out, school's closed, and then the kids, there's no expectation of this kids going back to school, but then, we're going to have a rec program and the kids are going to be in the classroom kind of setting outside, if you will, or indoors sometimes. And, it's a matter of opinion whether you think it's a good idea or a bad idea. But, as far as we're concerned here, I think we need to be in compliance as best we can, and we should have our consideration should be what's best for the community and the children.
When you consider the summer programs there, the actual kids programs, I mean, it's almost impossible to try to police kids that are having fun and playing and running and doing what they do, and to try to keep their distance. It's just, I just don't see how you could do it. Unfortunately, I mean, if there are other activities that can be created, I'm sure that there are some folks that are thinking about certain activities for kids right now that do allow distance, but anyway, I mean, I haven't seen any yet, and I fear that we're not going to be able to run too many programs here this summer for these kids.
Tell them to get some pedal bikes.
Yeah, great idea. Great idea, Dave. That's a perfect activity for kids.
So, in respect to the rec department, do you want to make a decision on programs tonight, or do you want to wait a couple more weeks on this? What's your feeling?
Well, I think we should wait. We should wait a little bit more.
I mean, nothing's pressing us here. Is there, Gary, that we need to decide on this tonight?
No, but people are starting to ask questions. Is there going to be rec? And everybody, we're all sort of, we all want to have things in their place, our plans in place. And so not knowing, not being able to make decisions and on things that used to be fairly simple is frustrating. And so for the sake of the parents, I don't want to put off a decision too late either. I think Sam can push it off till June. Programs don't start till late June anyway, after school is normally out. And so, yeah, we could definitely wait a little bit on this one.
I think the decision lies more with whether or not we could come up with activities to find a way to honor the whole social distancing. Like, as a parent, I mean, a lot of people may think I'm crazy and wrong. I don't think it would stress me out too much to have my kids go to rec, but most would, I think, from what I'm hearing. So what if we said to the parents, send us emails, let us know what kind of programs you think we could do. Maybe we could find some way to do some kind of treasure hunt with, the kids doing it separately on their own with their family. I don't know if we can have a traditional rec like we always did, because you're not going to be able to keep those kids apart. Like you said, there's no way you're going to keep them distanced. But to say we're not going to have rec at all, I think really we need to find out if we can come up with some great ideas and programs first, and probably, half of the people listening have ideas. So I don't know, we should decide yes or no tonight.
Yep.
No, I don't think we should either. I think we wanted to wait, but I think your points are good, Lori, because I'm going off my experiences with my daughter living in Fredericton and what they're doing there. They're more open now in New Brunswick than they are up here in Maine. But their programs that they have are already moving along, where they encourage, like what Dave said, family bike things during the rec periods, treasure hunts for certain things, walking through, taking a hike and trying to find a frog, trying to find a bird, try to find this and that. There are activities that can really work well with the groups like that, but they also depend a lot on the family being involved together, not just the kids on their own being sent to the rec on their own. So I don't know.
So why don't we send Sam out on a search? See what he can come up with for activities that we might be able to accept and say that that's something worthwhile or not, and then we can kind of decide if we're gonna run some kind of program.
Right. Plus, at the same time, it'll give our insurance people be able to come back to us and tell us what they feel our liabilities are or exposures are.
Yep, and I think Lori's idea, I mean, I don't know where we would channel those emails, but I think, you know, parents today are very well aware of what they're facing for the summer. So they're looking also, and they might have some great thoughts and ideas for us.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay, sounds like we're all on the same page to do the research and come back and report at a later date as to what we can and what we should not do for the rec department.
Yes.
Couple of other things. I just want to make sure I understand. I get it on all that, and I think that's a good plan. Bathroom facilities at the parks open, fully open, or if we are, then we're
Oh, I wouldn't open them, Gary.
No.
okay.
Not now.
Because if we do, we're going to have to. That'll have to be some level of sanitation that we're going to have to provide there. It's complicated, you know. It touches everything.
So I'm going backwards a little bit, you know, because I said I don't like this whole open close because then you have to police it. But you know, if you're worried about insurance, and I like to kind of listen to what everyone else says, why don't we just say that the parks are closed? If you use the park, it's at your own risk. Then it's closed. We're covered, but we're certainly not going to send the police after kids in the playground, right?
Yeah.
Maybe that's really all we need to do.
Mhm.
Why do you want to go that way instead of just telling him that the parks are open, but use them at your own risk, as opposed to closing them and letting them
It's just a thought, Doug, because you know, maybe the word closed, if you guys are worried about insurance, covers us, the town, you know. I'm okay either way. I want people to be free to use it if they so choose. I don't want to start parenting other people's kids. But you're right, I didn't really think about the liability to the town. So, which is really should have been my first thought.
Well, if you say at your own risk, that's exactly what it means, at your own risk.
Right.
Anything else, Gary, on the rec department?
No, the only other thing I'll add is that the campground at the boat landing on the river, by law, just like the fitness center, has to remain closed until June. Not the boat landing, but the campground. So the boat
Yeah.
landing is going to be open, but the campground has to be closed till June 1st. And again, we're probably just going to leave those bathroom facilities closed for the time being.
Yeah, I agree.
Yep.
Let's move
Yeah,
on.
we're all on the same page on that.
Okay.
Gary, really quick, have you heard, and I don't know if this is just a Facebook thing or if there really is something out there, has there been discussion with you guys or MMA and that they're thinking about changing those types of restrictions because campgrounds in Southern Maine are much different than campgrounds here?
I haven't heard anything
Haven't
yet.
heard and no emails from MMA or anything like that.
I have not, and quite, I think right now, all of the rules implemented under this order are pretty much evenly applied, north to south, east to west.
all right.
Even in
Public
the other
Works.
Maine.
Yeah, even in the other Maine. Public Works Department.
So Public Works they are already back to full-time work. When we, back in March, when it's all hit, we put everybody on split shifts and alternating so that we could try to, and of course, you know, with the exception of a snowstorm, everybody was working in the garage pretty much and in close proximity. So we had everybody split up that way. But we started, you know, getting more back to work, and then last week everybody was pretty much back to work. What we're doing at Public Works is resuming our 40-hour work week. We're telling our employees that they should have their face masks with them, and if they're in contact or in close proximity to employees or anybody else, that they wear their masks. Practice their social distancing requirements. We've basically implemented, to the extent that we can, vehicle assignments, equipment assignments. So, you know, you don't have to really sanitize the equipment between employees, if you will. High-risk employees, anybody who has any underlying health conditions, there are times when our Public Works Department do have to work in the sewer department, if you will. If there's a blockage somewhere, they're the ones that go out there and work to get that resolved with a contractor. So what we're telling high-risk employees is that if they are going to be in contact with sewage, that they don full PPE, gloves, masks, gowns, and face shields when in proximity to or handling sewage.
Is that available?
I think we can get some resources through our hazmat department. I think there's some gowns there and that we can use. So
Have you identified any high-risk employees?
don't know that we necessarily have some in the Public Works Department, but we do have others, like in pollution control, if you will.
Yeah.
And so
I think what Dave, maybe, you know, the high-risk employees might be those that are exposed to the sewer
Yeah.
parts and stuff, where they go on a job that could be a high risk.
I don't
More than
understand why
necessarily.
the sewer is a high risk. Are we saying that the virus is following the sewer? or-
yes,
Is that what we're saying?
yes, absolutely. In fact, they're talking now. I mean, we're not talking, but there's discussions that testing sewage for coronavirus is it going to be a good way to test for hotspots in the future? The presence of the virus is going to be in the untreated sewage, so we know that it's there. And they, you know, by default, anybody that works in the sewer department is extra careful because there are other pathogens like hepatitis, E. coli, that they have to be mindful for. So this is normal for them. I think it's just that it's even more contagious if it were there. And we just need to be aware of that. We want employees to be protected when they're going to be doing that kind of work.
Okay.
I think that's sounds like a good plan for the public works right now, Gary.
Okay. Pollution control. They have not gone to a reduced work schedule. They are considered absolutely essential. And so we're always on the 40-hour work week, so we're going to continue that. Employees, you know, again, if they're going to be in proximity to other people, they need to wear their masks. High-risk employees, just like public works, we're going to require them to wear all the protections available to them. Practice social distancing. We're not allowing any people any public into the pollution control facilities. And again, vehicle and equipment assignments whenever possible.
The one of the comments is that there are still construction crews working at the pollution control. Do they have to follow the same guidelines with gloves and masks, and
Yes.
that's been established and talked about?
Yep.
Okay.
Police
Anything
department.
else, folks? Pollution,
Sorry.
pollution
good.
control, we're all set there?
Yep.
So we're talking about instituting all these precautions here. Are we revisiting this in 30 days? Is that the idea?
I think we revisit as necessary, and as the governor's orders change, we will have to revisit. Right now, this is our guide. I think in the absence of any guidance, our employees are asking questions, and so and people as well. And so I think this is going to be something. I think these are reasonable, you know, measures that we can easily do.
Well, we're not talking about doing this for 6 months here. We're doing this for a month, and then we'll revisit and see what changed, if anything changed. If nothing changed, we resume for another 30 days and then do this 30 days at a time, not just a blanket. We got to do this for half a year.
No, I mean, right now, I put the outline for your consideration, that if the governor's orders don't change till through through August 21, then this is sort of what we have to, you know, consider that we're going to do here.
21 or 31?
August 31.
Okay. All
So,
set, Dave?
Yep.
Police department, they've been on a 40-hour work week all along. Again, we're gonna ask them to cover their masks, cover their faces when they're in close proximity to other people or employees. Social distancing, we're not allowing the public into the police department offices, if you will. And vehicle assignments, whenever possible, and they have been implementing that, I think, and you know, the way that they use their cars, they sanitize them after their shifts and they leave them alone for a shift, if you will, and the other officer that's replacing uses the other one. So that seems to be that seems to be working pretty well.
Yeah, out of curiosity, you say employees must cover face with masks and have protective gloves. The type of work that they kind of have, does that mean if they do a traffic stop, as an example, that when they go up to the vehicle, they will be wearing their masks and their gloves? Or is that, how's that gonna work?
I think the guidance is that if they're going to be 6 feet or less, then we should probably be using some sort of protective covering.
Okay.
And again, not everybody agrees with that, but those are the policies that are there. You know, coming from the governor's office down to us.
Well, your department heads here, Gary, are getting these mandates the same way that we are right now. Is that right?
They've seen this outlined. I shared it with them when I shared it with you guys
Yep.
last week with the agenda pack being distributed. So
Any feedback from them?
no, I mean, you know, there's the whole mask thing is we all know that's going to be a bit of a pain for us. But you know, it is what it is. I think it's not necessarily about becoming infected. It's if you know, it's yourself too. It goes both ways. And there's discussion about them mask or covering being 100% effective or not, if they actually do any good. But right now, that's all we have to go with. So.
Okay.
Ambulance department, pretty much the same guidance that I've just listed with the as the police department, but you'll notice that I've listed here that the ambulance department has their own guidance, if you will, doing what they do. So what I have listed here for them, just like the police department, is at a minimum, they probably have protocols in place much more stringent than that. So this is these guides here are not meant to supersede what they already have in place. If they have something that's working, that's fine.
Okay. Any
Fire
questions? Keep going.
Fire department, same as the ambulance department. You want me to read through them? We should pretty much.
No, it's pretty much the same thing.
Yep.
Public library, you know, discussion on that. Remain closed in May, possible reopen in June. Staff can work from home as necessary. Employees must cover with masks and protective gloves, practice social distancing. So the library has their own board, if you will. And so we're going to have to lean on them as well, or we're going to have to work with them to see what their thoughts are and what are you going to do with the library. A lot of people come in, there's books being handled, computers being shared. What are the protocols going to be for sanitizing and that? So I put that in here as for discussion for the library, more of a play smart. None of that is set in stone because I think we need to discuss with the public library board what their intentions are. They are a department of the town, but they have their own governance.
Got it. Any questions on this?
Nope.
Okay, move on.
The next thing is not necessarily a department. It's basically what I've listed as town-sponsored events and activities, or any event or activity on town properties. You'll see that I've listed there in bullets, May outdoor events on town property by rule has to be limited to less than 10 people, or 10 people or less. Events in excess of 10 people are prohibited by state's emergency rule. And then from June 1st through October 31st, outdoor events on town property that are either, again, town sponsored or on events on town property are going to be limited to the 50 person or less rule. So examples of that would be the parades, music festivals, music events. And that's a pretty consequential one, because that means Acadian Festival, music in the park, you know, rhythm and roots, or any other outdoor activity in the summer months. We've already seen parades being canceled. The Potato Blossom is canceled. The Clam Festival down east, down on the coast is canceled. You know, there's a lot of these have already been done. I hate it, but these are events that do bring people into a crowd. And so, you know, that I felt that was a very consequential thing to bring up here tonight. But these are the rules that have been given to us that we have to consider and put before, and they're put before you guys as to what are we going to do in respect to compliance of 10 and 50, May and June.
How is this, we went through over the recreation and the parks and stuff a while ago, and, you know, now you're talking any activity on town property. The parks belong to the town. And we're saying here through May, less than 10 people, and June be 50. Is there a little bit of a controversy there, or a
in respect to people using the parks?
Yeah.
And an activity at the parks?
Yeah.
You know, the whole thing going back to the parks is crowd sizes are limited to 10, right? And so define the crowd. What is it in a certain space? There's nothing that tells us what that space is, outside, if you will. And so, anything that I've seen. And so conceivably, you know, a group of parents and kids could go to the park and you know, if told with signage saying, hey, listen, enter at your own risk, please maintain your distances, as per, then they have the choice to do that. With programming, with big venues like that, it's going to be hard to have any way to distance these people 6 feet apart. And then you're going to be definitely in violation of those limits. So I know that I've talked to Jane, been talking to Jane Carter about this. She reached out to me and we've talked a few times. She's the one that handles Music in the Park on Thursday nights and Rhythm and Roots Festival, the Bluegrass Festival. And so she's already thinking of different ways to be able to bring the venue to people's doorsteps, sort of a mobile thing maybe. I don't want to let the cat out of the bag. And I know that she's thinking outside the box to try to bring something to the people in the community. So I think there's going to be something. I think we would support that. But I don't know a way to get around these restrictions without being in clear violation of them.
Okay.
You know, the one, just thinking about some of these activities here, the one that concerns me the most that we're going to lose control of is probably Birch Point here in the summertime when we start opening it up and people just start coming. I mean, who's going to be counting heads and who's going to say we're at 50 or less or more? I mean, nobody's going to be keeping an eye on that, I'm sure. So I mean, there could be some ramifications there, but in any case, that's the one place that I could see that we could face some issues here this summer.
And it may very well be that we might want to send somebody down to the beach to kind of walk around and encourage people to keep their distances. You know, you can fit a lot of people on the beach, but will there be more than 50 people there at a given time? It could happen on a nice day, especially this year after everybody's been bottled up since
You're
March.
gonna have some signing at the beach, signage that specifies that 50 or less, 6 feet apart, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and it's tough,
And-
because even the 50 limit person rule is tough because it becomes a first come first serve type of thing, and all of a sudden, who's counting 51 and 52 and 53 and
Mm.
telling people
Well,
to turn around and go
there's
home.
voluntary listening to all these rules, and then the other part is once in a while you might have a policeman take a ride around just to spot check once in a while. At least it covers the town by giving the public the right information, to keep their distance, and to not be more than 50 on the beach. It covers you and the town. More than that, uh, there's not much you can do.
Right.
Look what they did down in Florida. They opened the beach and they told them to stay apart. And yeah, do they always do it? No. But do they do it most of the time? Yes. And do you look the other way once in a while? I guess so. And people that are
Did the same thing
comfortable
in-
go. People that are not comfortable stay home.
Yeah, they did that in California when they opened up, and then it didn't work, and they had to close it back down again.
Yeah.
Okay, you
Okay,
need any more direct, input from us right now for that, Gary, or you're all set?
Well, I guess, I feel like I would need for this board to have some sort of opinion as to where are we going to abide on the venues? Are we going to abide by the 10 and 550 rule for May and then June through August? Because, we have to have a discussion here with the Acadian Festival Committee. They're waiting to have a discussion on, conceivably, we're not going to do the parade, the Acadian Festival this summer. I don't see how we can do it, but, we have to have, I think, some sort of policy in place.
The
Yeah,
Acadian Festival, unless they can come at us and say, we can hold this event, that event, and that event, and keep crowds under 50, or keep people separated. If they have some suggestions, it would be up to them to provide them at this time.
No, I mean, we've already talked about that. It's tough. I mean, we had bouncy houses for kids, a lot of these things bring people close together. Pretty much all activities bring people close together. And so there's really no way that we can do that without being out of compliance. So
I don't think that we should plan them. I think we pretty much, the Northern Maine Fair's even canceled, so I'm pretty sure people are gonna understand. Of course, there's some that don't agree with all of this that will be upset, but as a community, if we go and plan the Acadian Festival, and then different, if you're a private business owner, you wanna open, take the chance that the state's gonna take your license, that's one thing. But if you want to take the chance, Doug brought up liability. Well, here's a big one. If we go ahead and try to plan events, and then all of a sudden the governor shuts us down and says, you're not getting any money from us, I think we just have to make the decision not to have them and hope that maybe come, toward the middle of summer, if we see fall opening up, maybe we can create a fall fest or, some kind of celebration extra at Christmas. Doesn't mean we can't do anything,
right.
but right now I think we would have to just agree to cancel them and see what happens from there.
Yeah.
The other thing
On
too,
the same page as you, Lori, on that. I think you're right. Let's follow what we need to follow, cancel what
And I-
normally would happen in the summer, and reevaluate that there after August 31st.
the other thing too, that in respect to the Acadian Festival is that, there was a lot of sponsors that put into that, and they're not going to have, a lot of our sponsors are not going to have the means to be able to sponsor like they used to. I mean, they've been
Right.
they've been shut down for a period of time. And so the resources are going to be thin, and the commitments need to be made for the Canadian Festival now. We're already behind the ball now, but as to whether or not we can do that. And so, you know, we could put a lot of resources behind the Acadian Festival and not pull in a lot of people, and then, you know, become something of a significant expense to us too. So it's tough.
No, I agree. I agree with Laurie there. We should maybe postpone this until the end of August and then
Doug?
reevaluate. You know, things might change around here quickly. If we want to do something in September or October, we could plan it then.
Doug?
I
Okay with that?
agree. I agree 100%. I mean, you know, unless we get different direction from the state or from the governor, which could happen. I mean, you know, there's a lot of push-pull right now with this issue. It's a big issue for a lot of companies, a lot of towns, and so we could see things change. But you know, in order to plan these events, I mean, it takes time. You're not going to do that overnight. And I think our best directive to these event organizers is just to say no. We just can't have these events this year.
Yeah. Okay. All right, Gary, you got it? Enough info?
Okay. Next topic is Board of Selectmen meeting options. So I've listed for you what the options are, and then I can expand on that a little bit. For May, because of our crowd size limitation, we would continue to our meetings via Zoom, of course, recorded by WWL and live streamed to Facebook. Public input via comments in writing, received in advance of meetings and read out loud by this board. And then from June through August, and of course, this can change at any time. If the restrictions are lifted, we can adjust. But it's sort of a discussion point, if you will, at this point in time. Board meetings in person in June. Closed to the public due to the limited space that we have here and the 6-foot social distancing rule. So we already have 4 board members, recording secretary, camera person. That only allows us a couple more people in the room. Who are we going to say that we're going to allow in here or not? And before I'm done with that, I'll expand. And again, also we do the Zoom broadcast on WWL, live stream to Facebook, public input via comments written in writing in advance of meetings and read out loud. I did reach out to the school today to see if they would allow us use of the library. We wanted to have board meetings there. I know that the school has been shut down to the public, so I didn't want to overreach. I did reach out to see if the library would be a space that we could hold our board meetings, and we could potentially have our meetings there, space out the chairs, keep everybody distant. I don't know that we've ever seen a board meeting with more than 50 people or more. So conceivably, we could probably be all set that way.
And what did they say?
Yeah, they said that we can use the library. We just need to work with them in coordinating because they have to bring in their custodial staff and whatnot. So
Okay.
the
Other thing I saw the agenda for the next in 2 days. I believe there's a school committee meeting. I'm not sure it's Valley Unified or whatever, but they do allow the public to use Zoom also, so they can be like the board members on a Zoom thing, where if they want to ask questions or something, they're able to do that. Is that an option for us too here?
I think it could be. I don't know if you can have them all in the room. I think, but you can. I think there's
No,
something
but
you
they
can
would have their
toggle on
individual.
where people could write their comments and you'll see the comments come up. Something we can explore.
I would
Okay.
like to see more public input, live public input. I think you can do it electronically. You could probably limit it to, like we usually do with our board meetings, we allow 10 minutes, people asking questions, so on and so forth, and then we continue with our meeting. I think it can be done easily enough using some kind of Facebook application or whatever. Or even.
But if you could check out what they did because they advertised it that, and they gave you the location, the address to go to if they wanted to be part of this live. So I don't know. I don't know how that works. I mean, this is great. What I'm doing here tonight, you know, and stuff, what we've done for a few meetings now, you know, this has been intriguing for me to learn, but no way savvy enough to understand what goes
Well,
on.
I think Jason Boucher right now, who's live streaming this, I think he has the capability of having live comments coming onto his screen. Okay? And
But
you
what I
could get,
understood, Dave, is that you can actually, they can dial into a certain address, and they can, during a period of public participation, if you were you know, at your house and you dialed into that particular address, like you would be like this, yeah, my name is Dave Morin, and I have a comment or a question or something,
yeah,
which would be live. So I'd like to see what those options are, see if we
I
can
ju-
incorporate.
I just want to say that we have to be careful too, because a lot of the Zoom platform was being Zoom bombed by people using it for the wrong reasons and putting up inappropriate content or pictures. And so when you put the invitation out there, you create it open, or you basically give everybody an invitation, you're allowing a lot of people in there, and you're not sure what you're going to get. So
well, one person would be reading the questions, and if it's not appropriate or if it's vulgar, you don't need to read it. You skip to the next one.
Well, you know, Dave, I
And
think
you,
what you're talking about and what Don's talking about are not the same thing here.
Two different
Okay.
things.
You know, your Don's talking about having them live, like you and I are live right now.
yeah,
You know, where they could jump in, where yeah, this I could see could be a concern, but if it's going to come into
by
to
text.
what's that?
It would come in by text, not
By
by,
text, right? So somebody would have to read it back to us.
exactly.
That's a different format, and I probably would be more inclined to go in that direction than just
Absolutely.
open this up to everybody to chime in when they
Absolutely.
want to.
Yeah. Because we do it all the time now. When you want to watch a service right now, you can have all the comments come in underneath while the service is going on. You see such and such as watching, and they give a compliment, or they make a comment or whatever. And you can accumulate maybe 10 of these questions, and then somebody can just read them and we can answer them on Zoom. And there you have your public participation.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, good.
um, I would question too, while we're looking into all the options, I personally like the library option, allowing people to actually come in. And I don't know what the sound would be or how anything would work, but I mean, we have a multi-purpose building that is going to be basically empty and unused. You can fit 50 people in there 6 feet apart. So we just might want to think about that a little bit.
Yeah, and this would probably start in June when the 50 rule comes into play.
Yeah.
I agree.
I agree too. I agree that you know, we need to accept the public's comments, and we need to hear them, and I'm sure people would be a little more comfortable sometimes just addressing us directly than through Zoom.
So are you saying that in next month in June, we could continue with our budgets, try to finalize our budgets a little bit, or what?
I think that once we get into the next topic, which is the last part of this outline, we can talk about that.
Okay,
So
let's go to it.
town, town meetings, annual town meetings and elections. And so here's the thing. Right now, our budget process is pretty much stalled. And we don't know what state revenue is going to be. And we're not going to know that for some time now. And so we can make assumptions. We can work on our budget making assumptions of revenue. But those are just assumptions. And so it's tough, in the sense that we use revenues from excise tax in the state of Maine, revenue sharing, exemptions for programs that are funded to reimburse us for the homestead and the business equipment exemption program. And are all those programs going to be continue to be funded the way they have been? And so, we don't know. The legislature is not in session. I don't know when they're going to go in session. We don't have a lot of indication as to what the revenue picture is going to look like, and why does that matter? It matters because if we're going to see a significant reduction in spending, in revenues, if we're going to have to figure out what we can do here to reduce expenses to mitigate the loss of revenue, because that's going to result in a mill rate increase. And so if we make, in the absence of information from the state of Maine, we have to make some pretty significant assumptions for revenue, because obviously we can't be too conservative and hope for the best. And if we're short on revenue because our assumptions were wrong and we didn't assume enough cuts in revenue, what we were going to get, then that's a problem. It's a problem to our fund balance. The flip side is that if we make some very, very severe assumptions to revenue, that, the sky's falling, for instance, and we're just gonna say, you know what, we're gonna assume the absolute worst, and well, that's okay. But that has the effect of driving up the mill rate too. Okay, so waiting for a revenue number, what we're as town managers, we speak weekly on different conferences and stuff, and MMA, and they're telling us to try to put off committing taxes as late as possible, as late as you can afford to, because we don't know. So while I hate to, make assumptions on revenue, the prudent thing would be to say, it's going to be really, really bad. The less revenue that we budget into our town operations, that has the effect of bringing up the mill rate. And conversely, if we don't assume enough drop in revenue, that has the effect of not raising the mill rate. However, it does put us at risk of not raising enough money come the end of the year if we don't get the revenues that we anticipated getting, and it hits our fund balance.
So what you're really saying, Gary, is that you're not comfortable moving forward until you know your revenue sharing number. Is that what you're saying?
Well, so let me continue. I'm going there, Dave. Let me continue to go on here, is to say that, because the annual town meeting right now, under the crowd restrictions, we can't have annual town meeting till after August 31. Okay. And so that's widely accepted right now. We're waiting for the governor to address this issue for us. But right now it's widely interpreted that and accepted that there's no town meeting until after August 31, until that 50-person limit is lifted. And so, that gives us the opportunity to push back or to delay budgets, if you will. And why would we want to do that right now? Well, again, we're absent some revenue information and how, excuse me, it may very well be that the revenue picture is going to be so bad, it's going to cause us to have some very, very hard decisions in respect to our departments. But is that a conversation that we need to have right now if we don't need to have it, since we can't have town meeting till August 31? And so at this point in time, we have made our first pass at the budget, and we were going to start working from there and tweaking and working with the finance committee. But, I don't know that it's going to benefit us all that much right now, because I think it would be so helpful to know what the revenue side is, or be close to knowing something that we can use that information to guide us through our expense side of the budget.
I have two questions with that. So first off, let's just use the never mind excise tax and all those other things. Main revenue sharing, we usually get about 300,000, which is a mill, right? So if we're not going to address our budget, the plan, from what I'm understanding from reading all of these things we're getting, is that we're going to stick with the current budget into the new year, right? Is that correct?
No,
Assume,
not necessarily.
we're not gonna make any cuts and we're just gonna keep running the way we're running.
That's not what we're saying at all. So let me back up a little bit. So the governor's first executive order of March 24, okay, gave the towns the ability to, and the schools, the ability to adopt last year's budget and commit taxes. Okay, I don't think that's a good option because that doesn't give us the opportunity to make adjustments to our expense side of the budget. And so we know that the revenue picture is going to be different, and adopting last year's budget with less revenue is going to mean a mill rate increase. No ifs, ands, or buts. So which is why, you know, it would be helpful to have some revenue projections from the state of Maine to help us make informed decisions as to what we need to do here to mitigate a mill rate increase upon the taxpayers.
Okay, but I guess I'm not understanding then. If we're not, let's say we're not gonna have any budget meetings, we're not gonna, you know, worry about cutting right now, we're gonna wait. And then we hit July 1st. What budget are we running on?
So we operate under the governor's rule. We're allowed to operate on last year's budget month by month until we adopt our budget.
Right, so back to my question.
Mhm.
If we operate on last year's budget for July, August 31,
Mhm.
then we go to town meeting in September, budget doesn't get passed, we're 3 months in,
Mhm.
and we're still on last year's budget, and we do not get main revenue sharing, it's a 1 mil increase. Because we've made no cuts. And I'm not telling you we have to make cuts, I just want to make sure I understand. If
Yes.
we're doing nothing, either way, we're still running a risk of giving people an increase because county tax went up.
Mhm.
So we have to pay that increase. We have no choice but to pay it.
Mhm.
You know, I understand that it's not maybe a good idea to start looking at things and say, oh my God, we need to eliminate a department. But I also think going into the new year, we should at least try to walk back, you know, the slight increase we were seeing in this new proposed budget. Like somehow we have to mitigate the raise in the county tax and the other things that
So you have
already looking at an increase.
So you basically have two things going on here. You have the ability to not be able to pass a budget for a while still at town meeting. So we're operating on last year's budget. And so there's two things that we have to do, you know. Our budget year ends June 30. Okay, so we're still operating in this year's budget. We're not going to operate on the past year's budget, which is the one that we're in right now, until July 1. Okay. So conceivably, we would have basically 1 month or two of operations under last year's budget until the new, until we can get to a point where we can adopt the town's budget. A lot of unknowns. The only thing that we can do, Laurie, until the new budget is adopted, whenever that is, if we're into the new fiscal year after July 1, is mitigate, you know, spending to bare necessities, to keep our expenses as low as possible. Because at the end of it all, I mean, it's what it is that for 12 months of operations is what's budgeted for. So, you know, if our budgets, if running on this year's budget would be more than what we would normally, or what we would budget in next year's budget, those are expenses that we would have to curtail our spending as much as we can so that we fall within our budget for the 12-month period.
Well, and
You could,
sorry, Dave, I'm just saying, I think we need to look at being at less than our budget, because if we this year's budget. This year's budget ran the way it ran and went up 3 mils even with the revenue sharing. And there's a very good chance that we don't get, you know, I'm not gonna say not any, but it's very unlikely we're gonna get the same amount. So I just don't know where we're supposed to find that money if we don't start looking ahead at where we can cut. I don't want to be in September and say, oh my God, you know, we're short $400,000 now. Like, how do we go backwards again? So I don't know if I'm not understanding this whole process, but it just doesn't sound right to me.
So the,
And that's why I think it makes sense for us to start having at least preliminary budgets that we can go on. We can also project our revenue sharing. Let's say we work on a number that's 40% less than last year and work with that. And if it changes for the better, then we could always add it back into our budget. But if we have no idea where we're going all the way to September, well, again, how are you going to spend? What's your budget for July? Is it going to be your total budget divided by 12? Or is it going to be your last year's budget in July minus 10%, let's say?
typically it's your budget, your annual budget divided by 12.
Well, your spending in July and August is minimal compared to your winter months. So you're not going to use all that money in July and August. So what you probably should do is use your last year's expenses in July, reduce it by 10%. And take your money you spent last August and reduce it by 10%. Because you're not spending equal amounts every month there. Your budget's now divided by 12 equally through the year.
I guess I'm following what you're saying. What I'm saying is that the discussion that needs to be had is that in order to mitigate some severe reductions in revenue, the discussions that we're going to have are going to be pretty significant. And so,
Well, starting
abs-
May 1st, starting May 1st, when we can meet in person, we need to attack those budgets.
June 1st, you mean?
June 1st.
June 1st, yes. Yeah, when we start meeting together June 1st, we need to start putting some numbers together a little bit. We need to make some assumptions. And hopefully your revenue sharing number will come in by that time. I don't know.
There has to be some assumptions we can make that are somewhere in the middle of doing nothing and the sky is falling. And, you know, at least we're part way where we need to be if the sky does fall.
Yeah.
We're definitely between a rock and a hard place here, and there's no question that this revenue sharing issue is major. And you know, where we were looking on the plus side and maybe being able to live with the budget that we've had, I don't see that happening, and I don't see how we're not going to increase the mill rate either. With the revenue sharing dropping as it is, I'm having a hard time to see that we're not going to raise the mill rate again.
And that's why we need to start talking now rather than wait until the end of August.
No, I wasn't proposing that we wait till the end of August. I'm just saying that I think that it would be nice to be able to get some figures, a little bit something more than what we're getting right now, as opposed to where we're going on the revenue side. That would at least give us some confidence in our decision making, because our decision making is going to be consequential. You know, based on
Yeah, but you know, Gary, you have absolutely no idea right now when you're going to get word from the state as far as revenue sharing.
So typically the schedule for when they start, they put out 3 projections. The revenue forecasting committee starts to meet in February. They give their first projection, and then they meet again. And then usually in July, they give us their final, and that coincides with the legislature and the education funding as well. The school gets their numbers and we get ours, and that's what we plug in. And so uh, we've always adopted our town budget uh, without the full revenue sharing picture, but a pretty good idea of where it's going to lie. Usually by the second projection, they're pretty much on point. And the third one kind of finalizes it, the one that comes in July, if you will. And sometimes it's late July, but you're close, you know. This year's different. We don't know. They put out a projection in February before COVID hit, and it looked really good that we were going to get $277,000 more, which was great. I mean, that would have been awesome. But you know, we've already been told that not to use that because it's going to change, and you know, we haven't gotten any updates on that as well.
They're getting no sales tax or lodging tax. Well, no, but I mean, the losses of sales tax and lodging tax alone going into the state because the summer is going to be shut down is going to be, you know, crazy. So
Devastating, devastating.
The other thing
No,
too
no,
is
no
that,
no restaurant tax. That's 8% right there.
you know, what could potentially save us is any federal stimulus funds, and there's a lot of effort underway with MMA and their town managers to let our delegation know that feds are going to have to step up, stabilize states and municipalities and cities, because it's going to be very, very tough. And so that, you know, we would hope to see something come out from some sort of stimulus package. That's to be determined. That would help.
we can pray.
I mean, we've sent letters to our delegations, and we're doing our part, and we're keeping ourselves apprised with MMA, and they're keeping us apprised of any discussions they're having with delegation and the governor's office, and they're doing a good job at that. But at this point in time, we have to wait and see. They haven't included state stimulus funding or municipality stimulus funding in the 3 bills that they put forward so far. We're hoping that this next one, they're going to consider states and municipalities.
They're just starting to consider states and municipalities. It's just starting to be discussed on this round.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think the points are being made correctly, that we should probably convene budget talks as soon as we can in June. Start talking about scenarios, start planning. I think that would be a wise thing to do. And to see, you know, anything else that comes above and beyond what we might expect is good. I don't think we need to look at maybe necessarily, Lori said, maybe not the, you know, the worst case scenario, but something in, you know, that we have kind of a plan that says, listen, we're going to town meeting, let's say in October. And if we wait till then to get revenue things, it's going to be tough. We need to have that information maybe prior and work on that. So I guess the concept of starting to work in June on our budgets with the budget committee, the finance committee, and try to develop a budget that takes into account everything that's happening. And that might mean, hate to use the word cuts, but you know, maybe, you know, budget reductions is a better word, and we can go from there.
Well, and
So
you
I
know,
think I'm hearing by consensus that we should start as soon as we can in June, budget talks again.
I agree.
Absolutely, yes.
Yes.
I think we need to, and I'm not saying I want to go out and say, okay, like, you know, what would happen if we eliminate this department and eliminate that and do this? And I understand we also have to be really careful about that, because I don't want, you know, employees or people that get certain services, or if we say we're cutting all of social services, I don't want people to be sitting there, you know, in panic mode thinking, oh my gosh, if this happens, I'm losing my job, or I'm losing, you know, the services I usually get through this, you know, certain company or whatever. But we've got to at least have a little bit of a plan, you know, without, I guess, going into panic mode.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, elections.
So elections, waiting on the guidance from the governor's office still. Primaries are going to be July 14. We're still waiting on guidance on how we're going to roll that out. Be in compliance of social distancing and crowd size. I think, that's a tough one. With the thought was that we could at least have our local elections at the same time on July 14 for our local elections. So that's possible.
So we're still waiting on the governor, and the governor's not making any decisions? Is the governor gonna make that by herself, or does she need,
I can't speak for the governor, Dave.
yeah, well, she hasn't given you any inclination when she's gonna make a decision?
Well, they've talked about July 14. I think that's when that's gonna happen, right?
That's about it?
Primaries, July 14.
Yeah, that's already decided.
But we could do it by, couldn't we do it by, letter A through F or whatever downstairs at the KC Hall and the other alphabet upstairs, or, again, use the multipurpose because it's so big to keep people separated, outside even.
Yeah,
There's a lot
and
of options.
if you can't keep your separation, wear a mask. If you can't keep your 6-foot separation, you can wear a mask while you're voting, whatever. I think you're right. I think the multipurpose is gonna get a lot of use this summer.
Multipurpose has options, you have the doors to go in and you have side doors to go out.
Absolutely.
And you can, put your poles at the other end of it, so you have spacing of 6 feet. You can put probably, if you have 2 or 3 lines, you could probably put easy enough, you're 50, and just limit the line outside. We see it every day on TV, how that works, how
Yeah,
people are outside waiting to go vote,
yeah.
So we need to explore that to see. I think the multipurpose makes a lot of sense. Big
Yep.
enough.
Follow the yellow brick road.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Okay. Well, does that cover Article 1, Gary?
It does.
There's a lot of thought you put into this and stuff, and it's created a lot more possibilities and more thinking and more planning, but at least we have something on paper that we're visually looking at. I don't know if you want a blessing of the board, maybe by consensus that we follow some of your recommendations, but there's still information that we need to get out, right? That we need to make final decisions.
I think that we have we recorded what your comments were. We know what the guidance is.
Okay.
We do have a few areas that are yet to be determined, but just a couple. So
Okay.
we're good.
Okay, we're good.
Yeah.
Any other questions, guys, on Article 1? And Lori, I say guys, I want to include you in that comment too, sorry. We're good for now?
We're good.
Yep.
All right. Article 2, to consider the 2020 town roads paving project. Let's get into that discussion.
So at our last board meeting, we decided that, well, not our last one, but one before that, that we're not going to make a decision on whether or not we're going to move to pave right just yet. That it wasn't going to hurt us to go out to bid, see what we get for prices, and then maybe by the time that all is all said and done, we would have a better picture of what's going on with COVID-19. And so, still don't have a good picture, other than we know that revenues are going to be reduced by the state. We don't know how much. We know that we're going to see reductions in excise tax. People might not trade their vehicles as much. Some of the assumptions being made by the other towns based on the 2008 recession is 15% reduction in what we would budget for excise tax. You know, I think that's reasonable. That one's a little easier to determine, and revenue sharing, we don't know. I mean, that's just the number that they're gonna tell us, based on a revenue forecast. So what we've done is we did go out to bid. I'll go through that here, or just let's recap the project, if you will. We at town meeting last year put forth a project in front of the townspeople for a $3 million bond to pave town roads. The townspeople approved it. And so the authority was there to go ahead and move forward with securing the funding and doing the project. Then this happened, right, this year. So at 2 board meetings ago, we met and we had to talk about whether or not we should move forward. And I said, let's just look what the pricing looks like. Maybe we'll know more about the economy by the time a decision needs to be made. We ended up, we did solicit bids. We ended up getting one bid by Northeast Paving, which is formerly Lane Construction, for the project, which was $3 million. The bid price came in at $3,367,735. And so with that, I went ahead and I contacted the bond bank as to see what they thought the market was going to be for bonds. Again, for those who are not aware how the Maine Municipal Bond Bank works, they issue bonds in the spring and in the fall, and they have a definite schedule or timeline for submitting applications, when applications are reviewed and approved, and when the loan closing is. In this case, we had planned to only borrow the money in the new fiscal year, because that was going to put our first debt payment off into that other fiscal year. And at the same time that we were going to be retiring another paving loan that we had on the books. And our cash flow projection was that, you know, the amount of money that we were putting forward, that we were going to spend on the bond note or the annual payment, was going to come from, number one, the fact that we retired one debt payment, which is about $117,000 a year. And the balance of that loan payment would have been coming out of the offset from the Public Works paving project account, if you will. And so there was going to be a net neutral transaction as far as the mill rate was concerned. We weren't planning on having to raise the mill rate for this paving project. That's how we pitched the project, and we rolled it forward. That it was put before the previous board, and that's how it was put to the townspeople at the annual town meeting last year. Now, I have correspondence into the bond bank as to what their interest rates were looking like right now. They just finished their spring issue. Interest rates looked really good. I was sort of looking for some sort of indication as to the state of the bond market in the fall. If there were going to be any concerns about whether or not, you know, is that program going to be there this fall for us to use? And the indication that I got was, while they can't guarantee the bond market this fall, the assumption is that they are going to have some sort of bond program available for municipalities. So right now, you know, it's tough. We have roads. I'm going to go back to what I said before in this previous discussion 2 meetings ago. We have a lot of roads to take care of. We have 55 miles of paved road, paved lane miles, if you will. It's a lot of road to maintain, streets. We inherited Lakeshore Road from the state of Maine. They used to pave that. It's nearly 4 miles. We have to take care of that now. Our plan last year, after it was adopted, we did a lot of the prep work for the paving project. We did a lot of the cross culvert replacements wherever they were needed, and patched those back in with paving. We did a lot of ditching to address all of the needs, or at least most of the areas of concern that we thought we would have to do before we put money on roads, paving. So now here we are, we're dealing with this COVID-19 economy. We have a project that's been approved by the townspeople. The need is there. No mistake about it. Pushing this project off a year, its project is not going to go away. Okay. It's going to have to happen next year, the year after that, at the worst. The longer we wait, the more it's going to cost, because we don't know if the condition of the roads are going to get worse. And the good base that they provide right now in certain areas is not going to be as good as the road gets all cracked up. So yes, it is true that pushing off the project in this economy right now is probably a wise thing to do, not knowing what revenue is going to be and how, what things are going to be the year after next in respect to payments. That is very true. It is also true that this project will not go away. We're going to have to pave roads in some shape or form. A lot of our roads, we fell behind after the 2008 recession. We didn't keep up as much as we should have, but things were done back then to try to hold the mill rate and help the taxpayers, and that was good. That was all prudent, but it's all work that's going to need to get done at some point in time. And add the fact that now we now have Lakeshore Road, an additional 4 miles that we didn't have to do before. It's something that we can't ignore much longer. As your town's treasurer, I have concern for operations and paying the bills. It's my job to work with you guys to make sure that we make informed decisions and staying solvent and not finding ourselves in a situation where we're not meeting our obligations to the county and to the school, to essential services. And so I'm torn. I really am. I think that this project is going to need to move forward at some point in time soon. But right now I have a lot of concern about the mill rate, with the whole revenue picture being the way it is. We're not alone in this. If this makes you feel any better, every town is looking at this situation right now. And we're all scratching our heads wondering when we're going to have more information so we can make informed decisions. But we're looking into an unknown future, and that's concerning.
So your recommendation is to postpone these till next year, or table this till next year, or years down the road?
My recommendation to you is that you have what is essentially a project already approved, okay? But you also have a very dire situation with respect to the economy, potentially, and revenue. And then you also have the reality that the condition of our roads is not going to get any better, and the longer we wait, it's going to cost more. And that's what you all have to decide. What is the prudent thing to do here? I have concern. All of those things concern me. And so as a treasurer, I worry about being able to pay the bills. But I also know that as a town manager, there's a lot of people that were hoping that these roads were going to get done this year, and that we're going to get a lot of calls from a lot of disappointed people that if this project should not move forward, they're going to have to wait longer. It's not an easy decision. I'm giving you what I think are basically 3 arguments, I guess, for this project. And it's up to you as the policymakers. What are you going to do in respect to this project that we have upon us?
What rights do the townspeople have now with concerns about them voting this money in last year?
I think the guidance that we got, Doug, is that the townspeople have, the legal guidance that we got is that the townspeople have given you the authority to move forward with the project. And that's all I have right now.
No real time frame, right?
Well,
We have guidance, but we don't have a time frame. So technically, we're covered. We don't need to, I mean, we can postpone this if we choose to.
I mean,
Article 18, Doug, at the town meeting, said project would commence in 2019 with road preparation, including but not limited to culvert replacement, ditching, road base improvements as needed, with final paving to take place in 2020.
So so how do we deal with that?
the guidance again is that, I think legal guidance is that the board has the authority to move a project forward. Whether or not they decide to, based on what's going on right now, it's up to you guys. We do have a timeline. I do want to point out one thing is that, the work that we did last year for the preparatory work came out of the road projects reserve account. It wasn't part of this. It wasn't part of this $3 million
No.
bond, if you will. That was all stuff that was budgeted through capital reserves in the budget that we are in right now.
I have, did you want to go ahead?
Go ahead, Lori.
The warrant says that we're authorized. So if I remember correctly, the guidance was, we're authorized by the taxpayer. We are not obligated. And I want to say that's obligated was the,
Yep,
I think you're right, Lori.
yep.
I'm not very comfortable with, first of all, with the wording of the article. I remember some articles similar to this in the past, and the wording had to include what the payments were going to be and how it would affect your mill rate. And that's not included in that article. Now, I can stand in front of a crowd here and say, let's all have new roads, and everybody's going to raise their hands. But the next question is, who's going to pay for it? And nobody's going to raise their hands. So this article, to me, is a little deficient in that it never brought out the idea that this could raise your taxes by a significant amount. I realize that we have a loan that's maturing in 2 years, but that's 2 years from now. So you can't use that payment until it's matured. And to raid the account for hot topping at the Public Works for 15 years will put us in another bind because the other half of our roads still need to be maintained. And having traveled these roads in the last week or two, myself personally, I find a lot of deficiencies that need to be fixed before we put any hot top down. I don't think that we're done getting ready to put $3 million of hot top down on these roads because we're going to be wasting a lot of money. I think we need to take a closer look at this project and this summer, use this summer to again work on the base, upgrade some places. There's a Leveltu Road has a 2 dips in there that I lost the front end of my car. There's no need for that. All you need is an hour's work with some hot top and patch it up. It's a hole. And we have a couple of culverts that are coming that are too high. Those need to be fixed. And if we need to do some shimming this summer by Public Works, then maybe we should. I think we could do it for a lot cheaper than hiring somebody. And I'm only talking about shimming. I traveled up and down Dufour Road, and there's hot top everywhere, but there's a lot of collapsed shoulders. You're going to need a load of hot top just to shim that. Is that the proper way to do it? Are we wasting a lot of hot top, or should we do something different? There's a lot of questions that I have in my mind right now. I'm not comfortable moving with this project, not this summer.
Dave, can you explain to me what does shimming mean?
Shimming means that you have a piece of road that has a big collapsed area, maybe the size of a car, that's probably 8 inches lower than the rest of it. And you got to dump a whole lot of hot top in there just to bring it up to the right height to make it, now you can come back with a small shim and go over it, a small.
So
an inch
basically,
and a half,
exactly,
let's say,
exactly
and
what the
go
word
over
means.
with it.
You're shimming, you're leveling off with the rest of the road pavement.
Yeah, you're shimming with hot top.
Yeah, but I mean, you're making it level with the rest of the road pavement that's
Yes,
there.
exactly. And Dufour Road has a lot of that, those ups and downs. It's a lot of, there's hot top everywheres. There's a couple of spots that need to be fixed, like holes in this and that, or a culvert. But the rest of it is all up and down, up and down, up and down. And I noticed with an F-250 Ford pickup that 35 miles an hour is about the top speed that you want to go on that road. So just to give you an idea.
In
I say
respect,
we wait another year. I think we need to address some of these problems a little bit more. And this financial crisis that we're in, hopefully will be behind us and we'll be able to see a little clearer next year. And we still have $350,000 in our public works account as we speak for this summer. So we can take care of the worst areas that need to be fixed. We can do some shimming. I think we can make a lot of people happy with what we can do with that amount of money.
Dave, I don't have the number in front of me here. I don't have my financials, but I don't think we have that much. We've drawn down our reserve with the projects that we put forth last year. So I'm gonna have to get back to you on the number for what we have in our reserves. But I don't think 350 is the number that we have in reserves right now.
What do you mean? What do you mean reserves? That's our running budget every year for hot top.
I'd have to go back and check to see
Yeah.
what's left in there.
Yeah,
We are at the end of our
but
It is
I'm
the end of
talking
our
about
fiscal
in the
year.
new budget year.
on the new budget.
Starting July 1st, you still have, again, the same amount.
Just keep in mind, Dave, that as we work on our next budget, the areas that are likely first going to get hit are the capital reserves, capital projects, capital outlays, because that's where there's a lot of expense there in one spot. And oftentimes during financial crises, that's where towns go first.
Well, I understand it's very tempting to go into the hot top account because it doesn't affect labor. It doesn't affect too much. And that's how we are falling behind. We've fallen behind because that was the account, the go-to account to raid. And nobody really said too much, but how long can we raid the hot top account and not come to a place where nothing works anymore, you know?
I just want to be clear, Dave, I don't think that how the hot top account has ever been rated. The hot top account has been used to purchase hot top. The reason why we're behind is because we didn't do enough over the last decade, and we inherited more roads to take care of. And so I just want to make sure that the public understands that.
Yes, we did inherit the Lakeshore Road. We did inherit that about 5 years ago. And yes, last year, I think was the first time we put some money into it. We put some culverts into it and we fixed some ditching and that kind of thing. And I don't know if we're really done. I mean, before we start putting $3 million of hot top down, there's a lot of roads that need to be looked at more seriously before we put down $3 million of hot top.
Okay, well, we know where Dave is going. Any other comments from anyone else? Doug, do you have anything to add?
Well,
Or to
I guess
ask?
really, I kind of agree with Dave, except that I don't know if we can address any of these in stages. I mean, I look at the list that we have in front of us here, and I wouldn't have any idea if we were going to attempt to divide this, how we would divide this. But does all of this work need to be done, or do we have to go to the bond bank and chase $3 million, or can it be a lower amount? Or I guess the question is, excuse me, can we attack this in stages?
Here's where, we've gotten so far behind, um, that, and I get it, I get what Dave was saying about having debt service and still having roads to maintain and having a reduced paving budget in respect, in future budgets moving forward. But we find ourselves in a position that we don't have much choice, but the likeliness that we're going to have to borrow a significant amount of money to get caught up. Otherwise, you have to raise that money in taxes all at once, or, you know, in stages. So $340,000, $330,000 of spending is equivalent to 1 mil. So, you know, for every $1 million worth of paving, it's equivalent of 3 mils. And so how do you want to pay for the project? And so that gets you caught up, right? And so that's why falling behind on roads like that is it's tough, because once you decide that you have to, you hit that wall, you know, then you're hitting the wall and you're making some big decisions.
And that's exactly my point, Gary. If we do the hot top now, there is no way that hot top's gonna last 15 years, which is the life of the loan, 15 years.
That's right.
At the very most right now, half of those roads are not ready for hot top, and they will be back to a lot like they're looking now in 3, 4, and 5 years. I can guarantee you that by what I've seen. They have to be prepped a lot better than they are now.
And listen, I'm not going to disagree with you at all. But it's going to add a lot more cost to the projects as well, to the road repair effort.
I think the town can do a lot of that work themselves. We can do a lot of that shimming, and we can do a lot of that rebasing. If you got to do 10 feet of rebasing in one area, rather than just skim coat it with 1.5 inches of hot top and hope it holds for what? People are going to forget 3 or 4 years down the road, you're back to the same place.
I think I'm gonna have a discussion with Kevin and just see how and what they can do there that might help this situation along. But I tend to agree with you, Dave.
Lori?
I know absolutely nothing about shimming and tar and fixing roads. I did drive several of these myself. They're bad. I can see how if I lived on one of these roads, I'd be really upset, but I cannot in good conscience at this time agree to borrow any money. Like, I just do not, I don't see it. We have no idea where our budget's gonna land and what kind of money we're getting from the state. And we're already at risk of raising the mill rate if the state doesn't pull through. So, or we don't, you know, we can't find cuts that people can live with. I would not vote to take out a loan. You know, just whether I know about the project or not, it doesn't make sense to me.
I have another concern, a big concern. We have 4 companies in northern Maine that do hot topping, and we received 1 bid. I want to know why. I want to know why these other 3 companies are refusing work, or are they? I want to know the long and the short of it. I'm not comfortable with 1 bid. I'm sorry.
Well, we did advertise it, Dave, you know, and so I don't know, I can't speak for the companies as to why they chose not to submit. All I can tell you is that we did advertise the bid. We did our due diligence.
How did you advertise it, Gary?
Local weekly paper that we do every single year.
How did you advertise it, Gary?
Local weekly paper, St. John, Fiddlehead Focus.
There's
And
only 4 companies. Why not send a letter to 4 companies?
we could.
Save yourself some money. Don't have to advertise it. Send it out. There's only 4 companies that do it in northern Maine. Send out the bid requirements, send out the specs, just give it to them and say, we need a price by X amount of days. And if they need to respond in writing if they're not interested, or they need to respond one way or the other.
Why are you saying now that you want to go out to bid again?
No. But I mean, if we'd gone ahead, I'm not happy with one bid. And why did the other three other guys didn't solicit a bid?
I'm not sure where you're getting that fourth one there, Dave.
Well, just take it the way it is. I mean,
there's
there's
probably three-
something wrong somewheres when the company doesn't even put a bid in for a job, a $3 million job. I mean, there's something smelly. I just don't like the smell. So I think we're all in the same agreement here that we need to postpone this for at least a year and hopefully maybe prep our roads a little better. And the budget that we already have in our hot top account, I think we can do a lot with it this summer to make people
I,
happy enough to wait a little bit.
yeah, there's a couple of things, Dave. First of all, it's the same bid process that we've been using for years. And we've had multiple bidders in the past submit bids. So I don't know what the deficiency is of why. Maybe it's simple as that. Maybe writing a letter to I believe only 3 companies in the area here that would probably provide a bid to us. Maybe that would have been an option to do, but we've been following what we've been doing in the past. The other thing is that I believe we're going to have to, when we have our next town meeting, which will happen in 2020 at some point, we're going to have to go back to our voters and explain to them that we have not done the project because of these conditions. And if they adamantly say, no, you're going to do a hot top project, that's where they're the deciding vote, right? But they have to be explained what the financial impact could be. But I don't know. I personally, what was it? A couple meetings ago, whatever, kind of suggested that it may not be the proper time to go out and borrow money. And I still maybe think it's still not the proper time to go out and borrow money with everything being so uncertain. They're talking a lot about stimulus monies for infrastructure and stuff. Maybe there's some of that will trickle down to the local communities here, maybe into Madawasaka at some point that could be used for infrastructure. I'm assuming road reconstruction, building, bringing up the snuff, hot topping could be part of a program like that if that ever occurs.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying I think it's a good, probably in my mind, I'd hate to go out and borrow money and not know what the impact is going to be and what those revenues are going to look like down the road, because it is a 15-year borrowing. And I hate to see us get caught in a catch-22 that comes back to haunt us.
I think that's well said, Don. I think you're right. And I think we should hold on to that thought and move forward with that.
Doug, you still want to talk to Kevin, which is fantastic. There's nothing wrong with that. I know he's been planning and working very hard, and he's looking at all these possibilities and stuff, but it wouldn't hurt to maybe have the full board have a sit down with him at one point and to discuss it again with Gary and Kevin and the full board. So
That might be, but for sure, I need to be a little bit more informed about how to maintain roads, how to take care of roads, and how to prep a road for hot topping. Dave's bringing up issues tonight that I'm not familiar with, so I just want to learn on my own what really needs to be done to a road to get it prepped and ready to go to hot top.
Yeah, that's fine. So what am I hearing? We rejecting the bid at this point because we're not able to afford it right now, or not sure we can afford it? Is that what we're looking at?
Yeah, I think we need to table this and not move forward until, and you never know, like you said, stimulus money might come and in the month from now, they might vote in something in Congress and we say, wow, there's our money to do this. I'd love to see it done, but when it was presented to the taxpayer too, it was explained to not increase the mill rate, and that would have worked had everything stayed, the way it was. Nobody could have planned for this COVID-19 and
And I think that's important that you mentioned that, Lori, because when we talked about this project and how we were going to cash flow it and pay for it so that it did not have an effect on the mill rate, that's exactly what the plan was. But now, we're facing something that's causing a severe hit to our revenues that's going to cause, potentially cause something to the mill, for the mill rate to go up. And so that wasn't there last year when we talked about that. The situation just wasn't there. Nobody could have ever thought we would find ourselves in this situation, but it's unfortunate.
Yeah.
so what's the
All right.
motion be?
Say that again, Lori. I missed that.
So what does the motion need to be, that we're just tabling the project?
Tabling it. Keep in mind that tabling it, the bids that we did receive right now are going to be good for what, 30 days, give or take?
Yeah.
Not much more. So if we table it for more than 30 days, then, and we decide we want to go through with the whole project or part of the project, we're going to have to rebid again at some point.
Quite frankly, I think, things have changed so much that I think, putting this back, when we decide to go back to reconsider this project, that we go back to the voters and let them make a decision as to whether or not
Yeah,
we
I
should
agree.
do this, in what shape or form. Maybe we can give them the different options. But, the paradigm has shifted and everything is much different now. So I think the prudent thing to do in the future, whenever that is, whether we revisit it even this year at town meeting for a project next year, who knows, maybe that's a possibility. I don't know. I'm just saying that at some point in time, we will have to revisit this project. And it's a year or two away. I don't see it going out much further than that without the roads getting really, really bad. Some places are terrible.
So do you think at this point it'd be prudent for us to make a motion to table this until whenever? Or
I don't
we
know
make a
how
motion?
I don't know how you table this. I mean, either we
I don't know.
say we're not going ahead with the project and we're gonna go back to the townspeople with it, or
I think that your motion needs to be clear so that there's no ambiguity. There's no, people are reading this differently.
Yeah.
I really, if I was to recommend something, that you guys make a definitive motion that spells it out so that everybody understands it the same way.
Okay,
I think the motion should be to delay this project until next year unless something else materializes, like some kind of a government program that they're trying to throw money at us or whatever. But this project should be delayed till next year at the very least.
so you're saying delaying it, just delaying it?
Delaying it until next year.
Yeah.
Well, I think,
For
are you
now,
saying,
until further no, until we sit back and reevaluate how this loan's gonna get put together, where the money's gonna come from. Maybe new programs are gonna be coming out. Maybe all these will come together over the course of next fall and winter. Who knows?
I just, I just think that whenever the project is reconsidered, that it should go back before the voters one more time.
Yeah, I do too.
And
Yeah.
so your motion should say something to that effect, that, we're gonna, once we get a better understanding of what the economy is and the financial picture for the town, we have some sort of degree of certainty of whatever it is, whatever the number is for revenue, or what, that then we could consider putting it forward for the townspeople to decide once again. Because everything's
Yeah,
changed.
town meeting after September 1st.
In the meantime, I don't remember who asked the question, but is there a way? I don't know how you would do, but is there a way to prioritize this list that come town meeting, we said, okay, we can borrow $1 million and these are the roads that we can actually do? I mean,
If we're gonna
from now to then,
go to the main bond bank, our application has to be in by, I believe, August 1st.
oh,
Yeah.
So
you could do-
in essence, by
could do a
delaying
spring-
this and waiting for town meeting, that means that the earliest we could borrow again from Maine Municipal Bond Bank would be in the spring.
Right, so
So if
there's
you want
no,
to- if
there's
you
no
want
reason.
to-
I'm sorry, go ahead, Dave.
If you want to include it as an article in the next town meeting, as long as we're wording it so that we're saying what you just said a while ago, that, we're looking at the financial climate, this epidemic that we've gone through, all these things are factoring in. We've decided to postpone it till next year and somehow or another make an article out of that so that people are either in agreement with it or not. If they're not in agreement with it, we're too late to do anything that year anyway. So I don't know how an article will work.
Well, you don't necessarily have to wait to your annual town meeting to approve this project. You can go to special town meeting, right? And so the only thing that you have to plan for is in your regular annual town meeting budget is your debt payment. If you were gonna incur debt payment for that project, that's in that fiscal
Yeah,
year.
I don't see us going through a special town meeting when 10 people are going to show up in the middle of summer and make a decision for 4,000 people again, This is too much of a big project to be decided by 5, 10 people.
Yeah.
Interesting point.
All right, so Dave, your motion, to sum up what I think I heard, is that you made a motion that would delay moving forward with this project and
To 2021.
2021.
So moved.
Do I hear a second to that?
second. I'll
Seconded
second.
by Laura. Okay, I heard. Yeah.
So,
Anything
so,
else,
so
Doug?
that means that we're not putting forth another article then.
No,
We're just delaying this.
yes.
Okay,
Okay,
So our article can be different.
it could
well,
be different.
if we're not changing the article, which we're not today, we're only postponing it.
But Doug, I don't think we can change any article that's gone through
That's what
town
I'm
meeting.
saying. So it has to go in the way it is. It's not gonna change.
Yeah.
If we were gonna cancel the project and bring up a separate article with a different amount, then that would be a different story. But here, we're just postponing it.
Yeah, we're
Oh, it's not
postponing, but
So-
with the thought process that when we go to town meeting again, we have a discussion at town meeting, explaining to them why we did not move forward with this hot top project in 2020.
I
Let
have
the
no
town-
problem. I
let
think
the
that's a good
townspeople
idea, Don. I think it should be explained to the people, but it shouldn't be part of an article. They do need to know, to have an explanation why we didn't move ahead on this particular article and have a good discussion or an in-depth explanation why we didn't move ahead. And I think reasonable
And
people
by
will
doing that-
understand that we had good reason to postpone it.
Yeah, and by doing that, we are gonna have a town meeting in 2020, and the project says to be complete in 2020. So we're still in the same timeline. And to be able to bring it back to them and to discuss and to show discuss the reasons why we've decided to delay this project or suggesting
Yeah.
delaying this project to 2021.
Okay. So that's
Lori,
my
you
motion,
good with
delay
that?
it until 2021,
Yeah.
to
Lori,
reevaluate in 2021, and hopefully we can make this project work.
Doug, are you comfortable?
Yeah, I think Lori seconded that, so I think we're ready for a vote, huh?
Yeah,
Ready
well,
for a vote?
I think we are. I think we are. Okay, all in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so we've delayed this project, so that means, Gary, you'll have to write Northern Paving a letter, or at least make contact with them saying that because of the economic times and the situations that we're all experiencing across this country, that it doesn't seem to be in the best interest of our community right now to go out and do another borrowing until more information or better understanding of where we're going as a, financially, as a community and as a county and as a state. Okay,
Okay,
we have,
Okay.
my understanding, Gary, that as of May 1st, or is it June 1st, that we can have board meetings live, or bodies can be, as long as we keep the group of 10 people or less
50 after June 1st.
after June 1st. Okay, is there a need to have another meeting in May? We must have some business that needs to be addressed.
Yeah, I would say that we probably would have some business to do in May.
And that could be held at the chamber, our chambers. And as long as we adhere to, we're 6 right here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, plus the camera, 6, Natalie, 7. So we have to stay under 10.
So you
No,
want to,
oh, sorry.
Or May.
Sorry, Gary, I should have waited.
no, I mean,
Or May.
so
Yeah, we can't.
are you proposing that we have in-person board meeting the next one, or Zooming the next one?
Well, it would have to be, depending what you guys want to do. We can, if you want to space us in the council chambers, it would still have to be Zoom to the public.
Yeah.
But I'm just throwing that out.
we could do it in the council chambers, Don, or we could do it upstairs in the meeting room, where it's a lot more roomier. Don't you think?
Yeah, it's true. You mean you're talking about the school department up there,
Yeah,
potentially?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gary,
plenty of
what do
room,
we,
and we could have a group of 10 or less. So if we have 7 working people, if 3 more people wants to come in, well, they're allowed in.
Well, the only thing is, who are you gonna shut the door to once you hit 10?
Well, once you get 10, you shut the
True.
door.
It's true. That's true too. Yeah.
You don't have
Because
a
I was,
choice.
I'm contemplating, because I was hearing what we were talking about a while ago, and I'm contemplating my particular condition as, as a possibility that I would call in versus would still be a Zoom thing. But if you guys wanted to sit around the table, that's up to your individual choices. Maybe we ought to wait till June before we convene in an area where we can put 50 people. I don't know. I'm just throwing that out. After June, I'm done. So we'll have.
Gary, do we have anything pressing here that we need to meet here in the next 2-3 weeks?
I got some abatements that need to be, processed, put before the board. Some minor abatement requests, sewer.
Did you get a letter from Mark Sear on his proposal that the board needs to look at
We can't
For,
speak.
for a piece of Canaan Street being deeded over to some people? And
the only thing I got, Dave, so far is what you provided me for imagery.
yeah,
I don't, unless it's in the mail, we do quarantine our mail for 72
do you
hours.
need
I haven't
a
seen-
more Do you need something more formal to move ahead?
So in respect to selling town property, we have to go to town meeting to do that.
Town meeting.
The board doesn't have the authority unless it was granted to the board at the previous town meeting,
It wasn't.
and it wasn't. The only authority that the board has to dispose of property in respect to real estate lies with what we acquire through tax or sewer liens. And we have a guidance on that the board, the townspeople approve every year. of
Okay,
how we-
so at least we can tell the client that he'll have to wait until after a town meeting then, if that's the case.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, the board would have to decide what the terms of the sale would be, okay?
Well, that's what I'm trying to nail down at this point.
Right?
Do
And
we want to move ahead with this? Do we want to put a price on it? Or how are we gonna handle this?
well, typically
Well,
property.
first of all, Dave, you're talking about something that you're knowledgeable about that I think the rest of us are not.
Right.
So to discuss it today is.
I don't want to I just want to bring it on the next board meeting so we
Okay.
can talk about it.
Okay.
All right.
Got it.
Even though it's just
So-
preliminary talk, so whatever, we might not be able to make a decision, but at least we'll have put it on the
Yeah.
agenda
Okay.
and we'll have a discussion about it, yeah.
Yeah.
Doug,
got
I see probably an agenda of 12 to 15 articles, some of them pretty straightforward, but still having to happen sooner than later.
So we should have a meeting then
Okay.
before June 1st.
And then also, yeah, and then of course, we go back to the rec department with the programs and what are we gonna do there? That's a decision that we have to revisit before June 1st.
Okay.
So
May 18 or 19, is that too fast?
I think May 18 is good.
Is that a Monday?
Yeah.
May 18 is a Monday.
Okay, May 18 is good for me.
For the next agenda, Dawn, you just made me realize something. You're done in June. At the time, we were all saying, oh, it'll be at the time of the election. Does that mean we should revisit or we should discuss, do we really want to wait until June 14 for board elections? Are we okay to go for the month with the 3 people? How does that work?
Well, June 14 is not going to happen, Lori. I think
July,
it's
I mean.
early
July.
July. Yeah, July. Okay, yeah. If I finish at the end of June,
Okay,
which then you'd have a couple of weeks. You'd have to operate as a 3-member board
Okay.
before the next election. Yeah.
Okay.
And I believe I had said, my resignation would have been effective following the elections in June, but that's not going to happen. So, but June 30th is my drop dead. I can stay till then.
Don't say drop dead, Don.
No, I shouldn't. That's not a good word to use at this time. Yeah, got it. So we're looking at, Laura, you okay on the 18th of May for a board meeting?
yeah, yes.
What
Doug?
time?
Yes,
It would have to be 5:30.
5:30
Is that a
work?
good time? 5:30?
5:30 works for me.
And
Yep.
are we gonna do the Zoom again? Or are we gonna, because I may not want to be in a group setting because of my immune system.
Well, let's do one last Zoom. How's that?
yeah, and to be only open to 2 or 3 people to come in to a meeting, you're just gonna upset people. You're just gonna piss them off, turning them away at the door. I mean,
Yeah.
let's just stick with a Zoom for the May
Yeah.
meeting and
Yeah,
then go from there.
Okay, I'm good with
Okay.
that.
Well, are we trying to figure out though, as we discussed right in the beginning of this, if we can have public participation electronically?
Yeah, let's do
Well,
that.
Yeah.
Let's not forget about that.
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
Yep. Yep,
You got that, Gary? Yeah?
text or email. So,
Yeah.
so Gary, we would have somebody to be able to receive those messages?
I think
We can
people
have
can,
Natalie monitor while she's taking notes, and she could read us what the questions are, and that's it.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not gonna be able to take 100 questions, but we can reserve, like we usually do at our normal meetings, 10 minutes of public participation.
Yep,
Okay,
We
We
can't,
all set?
we can't
hold on.
entertain, we can't entertain allowing a compromise between letting everyone in on Zoom or just people who want to comment. Because usually, there's 3-4 people that actually know that they're coming to the meeting because they have comments to make. Could we entertain maybe saying, if you want to make public comments, then, email Gary and he'll get you, I don't know. I just,
I will post the
put an
agenda
email
that way.
today, and that we're not changing anything by just saying that they should email us. We're just changing who was going to read the email, because they could have emailed Gary and he would have read it to us.
Right.
Well, if you want to do it by email, and if you want to do it before the meeting, that's one way to do it. But a lot of people have comments while, right before the meeting, let's say. And not everybody's gonna take the time to write an email or whatever, but if you do have a live, I think they call it a podcast, a live podcast where you can make comments while this podcast is going on, then you can either write those questions down and maybe attack 5 questions, 10 questions, do 10 minutes of questions.
Gary.
I don't know the possibilities of that.
I'll talk to Jason Boucher and
Yeah,
John.
it's done all the time.
Well,
We're attending
wanna-
church services all over the United States here, and they have comments going up all the time. It's just a little
just
program.
wanna
I'm sure
say-
that Jason Boucher knows how to do it.
I'm sure too, but I'd just like to see what they're doing on the school board meeting in a couple nights, where I read that if anyone wants to participate, they gave them an address. That means in my mind that particular, it's like you're part of that meeting, and for 10 minutes, you can speak,
I'll
like
ask
we
them.
would have.
I'm sure we can come up with something in 2 weeks.
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
Yeah,
Anything
I'll
else?
make a
Gary?
motion that we adjourn.
Second,
Seconded by motion by Dave, seconded by Doug, all in favor.
Aye,
aye.
Okay, thank you, folks. Have a
thank
good
you.
night.